Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Training Camp Live, presented by FedEx. I'm Mike Prisuta, joined today by Max Starks. You can see the fields of St. Vincent College behind me. Unfortunately, the Steelers aren't here today. That storm last night that rained out Friday night lights has necessitated a move back to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex on the south side of Pittsburgh. And there you are looking live at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex in Pittsburgh. The Steelers forced to take it back to their regular practice facility, Max, to work on some good fields today. Unfortunate that it rained last night, but what can you do? You have to adapt and adjust.
And the one good thing is you're going to the friendly confines of the Southside facility. I know earlier it was scheduled to actually be inside in the indoor facility, but weather permitting, they checked the fields, it drained properly, so that's why we see the Steelers practicing outside, a lot more space, you can get a lot more stuff done. For the fans, not as great a deal, but for the players, at least they're going to be able to get some work in because they missed last night at Friday Night Lights down here in downtown Latrobe.
And the weekend, not a total wash. We still have a show to deliver for you today, and since the Steelers are in a different location than our location, we thought it'd be a good time to take a look at the depth chart the team released this week, the first official depth chart of training camp. Now, I want to caution everybody, this is not going to end up in the Smithsonian. It's not going to be under glass at the new Steelers Museum at Acrisure Stadium. You got to start somewhere, so they're starting somewhere. Max, as we take a look at the offensive side of the ball, where should we start? Let's see. Wide receiver? No. Running back? How about quarterback?
Yeah.
Let's start at quarterback and take a look at Mitch Trubisky, Mason Rudolph, Kenny Pickett. That is how they've practiced some. They've also practiced with Pickett some at second team. Rudolph has gotten a sprinkling of snaps with the ones when they cut the reps from 4 to 3. But right now, how do you see it? And more importantly, where do you see it going?
Clubhouse leader, is Mitch Trubisky. He's taken the lion's share of the first team reps since we've been in training camp. And it's been one of those things where he's kind of been trying to get a field. He's up, he's down, he's feeling out his new receivers and trying to get a hold of this Matt Canada offense. I don't see much changing going into game week next week as we start on Monday. Players will get the day off, of course, tomorrow, and the week will start in earnest. And I expect to see that actual depth chart, Mason Rudolph getting the number 2s right after Mitch Trubisky, and then Kenny Pickett. I think Mitch is the one that they have tagged as of right now to be the starter. They're giving him every opportunity to be the starter in this offense. Now we'll get to see him. He got Deontay Johnson back with him signing that new deal. But, of course, you've had George Pickens, who's been a bright spot, and he's found a connection with him, Anthony Miller as well. But now he'll be getting another piece back. Chase Claypool back in the practice form. So we'll start to get to see what a first-team offense really looks like as is slated up here on this opening depth chart.
I agree with you. Just about everything you said there. I think Trubisky will be the guy. I think he's been a little in and out, but I've seen what I was hoping to see from him. I just haven't seen it all the time, which is, I guess, why you have training camp and practice this stuff. But the 2-minute drill this week that they ran, I thought Mitch Trubisky was very good in that. Saw him make a play with his legs in a third down drill that looked like a live, the real deal type of stuff. So I think we're seeing his game. Would like to see a little more of it. I think Kenny Pickett at this juncture is kind of on his own schedule, Max, and as he can develop, he will force their hand into deploying him how they see fit, and then let the games begin and see if games are won or lost and react accordingly.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to look at it. You have to have some starting point. You have to put out the broad template, which is what Mike Tomlin, in essence did. He said, NFL wants a depth chart, I'll give them a depth chart. But at the end of the day, how you play in these games, I thought Friday Night Lights was going to be a great telling opportunity, but obviously we lose that because they have the team drive periods in there to really see how these quarterbacks do operating all the way down the field. We won't get to see that, so we will have to put a TBA until we actually see the Seattle game where we'll get guys actually driving and making competitive throws and catches. But I think you're right. Mason Rudolph has probably been the most accurate in camp so far, a guy that we kind of have an expectation because he's been in Matt Canada's offense before, so you see what he can do. But I think, when we're talking about slating these guys, Trubisky has more of the athleticism of what Matt Canada wants to do, a lot of the misdirection on the run, off-platform throws, versus Mason, who is more of a drop-back pocket passer. He's not a good motion guy on the move. And then Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett's athletic, can do it. He just, once again, he's young. He does it. He's still learning this offense. He's still understanding everything that's asked of him. So he's on his own schedule. And that's why I think 1, 2, and 3 will look this way until we actually have some opponent film that we can judge them against and see what it comes down to be a ball player that's going to make plays.
Now, Pickett's starting to get that back pylon fade down in the 7-shot drill. He's executed a couple of those now. Just both of them have looked beautiful. You touched on wide receiver. It is interesting looking at the offensive depth chart. They listed 12 players, 3 wide receivers, and they also included fullback Derek Watt, who was manning a position unto his own this summer. Pickens included with the starters, I think, is an acknowledgement that, wow, this guy looks pretty good.
Yeah, he's as advertised. And, in fact, dare I say he might be a steal of a pick. Him falling into the second round, but him coming in here and looking every bit of what you'd expect a first-round wide receiver to do. He's tall, he's lean, he's fast. He's a mismatch nightmare on the outside. He can go get the jump ball, but also he's athletic enough to be able to make those tight window throws and do something acrobatic or something special. We talked about the one time where he kind of was stretching over the top and side, and he made a tremendous catch. Wolf called it the triple Lindy. Another time this week, I saw him fall at the top of a route, but bounce literally off of his knee and make the catch right before getting to the ground. So I think there's a lot of good things when you look at George Pickens and you figure him into Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson in a rotation. That's a heck of a 3 wide receiver set to go roll out on a Sunday. So it's good acknowledgement for him because this young man's been popping up on film every single day.
Offensive line-wise, there are 2 players listed as the starter at left guard, Kevin Dotson and Kendrick Green. Max, what kind of battle are we seeing there? And is the loser of that battle destined to be an off-the-bench guy?
Yeah, I think when you look at the battle between Dotson and Green, you have 2 very different body types. Kevin Dotson is your big, massive, land-chewing, earth-moving type of left guard, very powerful, very strong with his hands. And you look at Kendrick Green, I mean, you see the picture. Impressive, big arms. He's always got tickets to the gun show.
Especially from that low angle.
Yeah, really, it is. I mean, it accentuates. And then you got Kendrick Green, who's more athletic. He's tenacious. He's ferocious. He's one of those guys. He brings the physicality. He's one of the guys you never have to worry about, okay, is 53 gonna go off and hit the second level? He's already down there, and he's talking trash as he's taking a guy to the ground. So you have 2 different types of bodies, and it's about what do you want to see more? Are you looking for a guy who's going to run more inside zone? Or are you looking for a guy who's going to be more of a pulling guy in space? Because I think Kendrick really excels in being in space and finding bodies in space, whereas Kevin Dotson is an earth mover. You put a 3 technique, you put a 2 technique in front of him, he's going to drive that guy off the ball. And he's gotten a lot better at his pass protections. And also for Kevin, question mark is health. That's the biggest question. Can he stay healthy? That's one of the things when you're weighing this contest. But I wouldn't be surprised if the loser of this also gets a shot at another position on the offensive line.
I also found that, I don't want to say intriguing, but interesting that Connor Hayward, the rookie out of Michigan State, is listed 3rd at tight end. Now, he's ahead of Kevin Rader, who's been around for a couple of years and played a little bit for the Steelers, and ahead of Jace Sternberger, who's got some time in the league with the Green Bay Packers. Is that an acknowledgement of their expectations of Hayward, or did they just list those 3 in alphabetical order?
Now, I think it's more so an expectation for Hayward because you have to remember, Connor was more of a fullback when he got drafted here. That's what the position he was. He played at Michigan State, and he's been working exclusively with tight ends.
H-back to be a little more
H-back, F-back. It's all alphabet.
He wasn't the,
he's
hammerhead lead the running back through the hole.
He's an alphabet back, okay?
Yeah.
Is that a better term? He's an alphabet back. But what he's going to be asked to do, I think, is be able to catch the ball out of the backfield. Be that detached guy when you're running 12 personnel, which is obviously 1 running back, 2 tight ends, but he's going to be the wing guy, the guy in motion,
yes.
A lot of what you want your H-back to do. And so he's going to have fullback, H-back, tight end responsibilities. So you list him there to see if he can do it. And he showed that tenacity during training camp so far, backs on backers drills. He had a very good day, and he's always popping up, making some great catches. I think when we get to the motion, as much as you want Mitch Trubisky on those edges and motioning, running him in a reverse direction and giving him some hide routes, giving him some sneaks and some flat routes is going to be a nice changeup because he has the speed once he catches the ball to get north and south.
Yeah, he's not going to be the guy that leads the running back between the tackles and knocks over linebackers, but
he'll pick a safety off, though.
His college career was that as a gamer, a guy who would make plays in the passing game because he's got great hands and great balance, a little bit of body lean as well, and also pretty good edge guy. Now, I don't know if he's going to be an edge blocker at this level. They may have to script that and set him up in positions where he's got the edge a little bit to block the edge. But I want to see him in these preseason games.
Well, and he's a willing participant. I think that's the biggest thing. Can you go out there? If we ask you to go do it, are you going to willing to put your face in the fan? And he's willing to put his face in the fan to make a block. And I think that's what we're going to see. I expect to see a lot of him in the Seattle game, whether it is in that run support and also in the pass game to influence from different positions. Maybe you give a team a fullback look and you motion him out of the eye. Maybe you line him up at the wing and you send him across in formations. I expect him to be a move guy in this offense, and that's what he's shown so far in camp.
Before we get to the defensive side of the ball, I love when people talk about the sides of the ball like that.
Yeah, it's great.
It's really not. It's not a sided thing. It's kind of round. And
it's kind of who goes in as well.
Let's get to the Pro Shop item of the day. Today's item: a T.J. Watt Nike replica Atmosphere jersey, and I'll show it to you here. It's gray. T.J. Watt, nice numerals in black and gold. Scan that QR code to shop for the item of the day. You got a gray shirt here. I'm wearing a gray shirt. You got a little gray in your ensemble.
Got a little two-tone here. Yeah.
It's almost like we planned this.
I know.
Which we, in fact, did not.
We did not. I promise. We were not peeking each other's windows. I promise.
Okay, let's talk defense now. And defensive line, a good place to start. An area of attention after last season. Max Alu working his way back to complete health. He's listed as the starting nose tackle, and Larry Ogunjobi as a starting end opposite Cameron Hayward. Montravius Adams, to me, is really playing well in Alu's absence, and I'm wondering if they list the 3-4, which they're going to be in less than 20% of the time, if that. Mike Tomlin said when we arrived here before practices started, he considered Ogunjobi more of a sub-package pass rusher from the interior. Chris Wormley is Ogunjobi's backup. Did Wormley take as big a jump as his sack total would have suggested last year? And are we maybe going to see a battle at nose tackle?
I think the biggest thing was that Chris Wormley, when pressed into service, right, he came into the season with Stephon Tuitt as a guy who was going to be a rotational guy from Baltimore. And, of course, Stephon does not come back last season. Wormley's pressed to be the starter. I thought he did a great job considering where he's at in his career to be that guy that played the number of snaps that he probably, outperformed, so to speak, versus what he thought he was coming into, and really did a great job. And I think he's a guy that is just a fixture now on that defensive line. I look at Larry, and like you said, Larry comes over. He has a cachet and a skill as running as an interior pass guy. But I think it's more so rotational because Carl Dunbar loves to rotate in his linemen. D lineman, he loves to roll in, so he wants to have 2 and 3 deep if he can.
Well, the 40 teams have really done that a lot in recent years. And
yes.
San Francisco rode it a long way. You can bring those guys in, like you said. It's a huge advantage.
Well, it's a huge advantage because you always have a fresh guy, right? You always have a guy who's willing to come off. You don't have to worry about guys getting tired. And also for the guys on the line, they know, hey, if I go hard 3 plays, I'm getting subbed out so I can go rest. It's not like you're in the middle of an 8-play drive and you're waiting like, man, okay, I don't want to tap my helmet. Hopefully he knows. No, you're rolling in guys constantly. So I think when we look at how the starters are listed, I think Montravius Adams is going to have a big role in this defense this year. He's shown it. He's earned it, not only last season, but in training camp so far. He's done a great job over the centers of really pressing them and giving them a hard time and getting in the face of the quarterbacks and kind of distorting some of their views. And even DeMarvin Leal, who's listed, I know, is third at the defensive end position, but he's a guy who can play all 3 of those interior positions.
At inside linebacker, another position where we have co-starters, Devin Bush and Robert Spillane. And a lot of talk this week about Robert Spillane, specifically from Terrell Austin, the new defensive coordinator, and Brian Flores. It's not that they dislike Devin Bush to this point, but they love what Robert Spillane's doing. As Austin put it, Max, he is working his way into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Robert Spillane has shown up on film, backs on backers. He had a great drill on the first day. Tomlin highlighted him. He had some good blocks. He went up against Najee Harris. He went up against Jalen Warren and also Benny Snell. And now he's starting to show what once was a liability last season, which was a pass coverage. You saw he's learned how to actually gain leverage and read kind of the stances pre-snap and gain an inside half and be able to stick with a lot of the plays crossing the middle, whether it's taking a tight end across the formation or whether it's picking up a fullback or a running back out on a swing route. He's done a lot better job of making sure he has that foot speed to match and use a little bit of intelligence when he can. And I think that's what's really kept him in the conversation. Devin Bush still seems to be a little bit tender on that knee, still trying to figure out what exactly he can do and can't do, but we keep seeing flashes of Devin Bush. We'll see a couple of times we're like, man, he's not looking good, and then he'll just come up and just plug a hole and really stymie the run game or come in and make a key PBU type of breakup on a guy making a pass in the middle. So it's a little bit, it's just not consistent enough. I think that's why you have two guys listed as the potential starters.
You mentioned running back a second ago, and it occurred to me that we skipped over running back when we were doing the offensive side, but I did want to get there because Benny Snell Jr., number 2 behind Najee Harris, his name came up a couple days ago. Now, Mike Tomlin was specifically asked about him. It's not as if he just went there, hey, you guys haven't noticed how great Benny Snell's playing. But Tomlin, to me, seemed very sincere in his appreciation of the great condition that Snell is in. The running back lines have been short because Jeremy McNichols was out before he was placed on IR. Najee Harris has been out. And according to Tomlin, Benny Snell has been attacking it offensively and not letting his multiple special teams responsibilities waver in any form. He's been ready and participating in both areas, and Tomlin said he respects it.
Yeah, I mean, I can respect it as well. But at the end of the day, I think there's still a conversation for the number 2 running back here. And Anthony McFarland is another guy I think of note. His speed is there. His conditioning is there. He's done some great things in the team drills. Jalen Warren, another undrafted free agent rookie.
Is he a camp phenom, or are we not there yet?
We're not there yet. Not there yet. There's still not enough required amount of pads to be able to call him a phenom.
But he is kind of the guy who's maybe coming from the least recognizable spot to be talked about more than we thought we'd be talking about him. Maybe we've already done that more than we thought we would all training camp.
Dark horse category. So he's in dark horse. That's the level we're at. And then we'll see as we progress through this, we get through a training camp preseason game, then we'll know if this is a phenom. But he's one of the guys I have marked. Mateo Durant, another guy that has been doing some good things in practice. A little bit taller guy, a little bit lighter. But I have to say, Anthony McFarland, Jalen Warren, outside of Benny Snell, have been doing a really good job in camp. They've all popped at certain points, whether it's catching, pass protection, and, of course, most importantly to me, run identification and hole identification has been key, and I thought Jalen Warren and Anthony McFarland have done a really good job of IDing it and finding the holes and setting up the offensive line to block some of the second-level defenders.
Running game's kind of starting to slowly establish, right? I think that first day in pads, the first 2 runs were tackles for a loss, and that wasn't necessarily what I was looking forward to seeing, but you're starting to see the tackles made on the defensive side of the line of scrimmage now. You're starting to see a pop every once in a while. Slow and steady maybe going to win this race?
Oh, I think it's definitely slow and steady just because you have so many new pieces, especially in the middle. You know, you're replacing essentially 3 different positions on the offensive line, and that's where a majority of your push comes from your center and your guards, and the tackles create the space and the width of those lanes that running backs can run through. So when you have 3 new guys and you're rotating a left guard every other series, it's hard to get continuity. So it's going to be a little bit slower going than a lot of the other things as far as your passing game and some of your screen game and play action. Those are going to come along faster, even with new personnel at the quarterback position. Offensive line, that nuance in the middle is really, really a slow goer.
Secondary's been really interesting to me as well. A number of guys have been involved, and he had Minkah Fitzpatrick starting out on non-football injury. He just came back. Akello Witherspoon is playing a lot. Levi Wallace has been out with an illness. The depth chart lists Wallace and Witherspoon as co-starters at left cornerback. opposite Cam Sutton. But Witherspoon, a real interesting guy to me. And Max, so is Arthur Millette, who is listed as the first nickel. Now, we've seen when they line up at nickel and Wallace was available, we've seen Wallace and Witherspoon outside and Cam Sutton inside. Cam Sutton has played inside, a lot of football inside here, and he does that very well. But Millette, like some of the other guys we've talked about today, he's not going anywhere. He keeps showing up.
Yeah, Arthur Millette is a guy that wherever you ask him to line up, he's going to show up. And that's been one of the things I think has been a nice thing, whether it's a pass breakup on the sidelines, an interception here or there, or some type of key play that needs to be made defensively in the secondary. He's always in and around the football, which you like that type of nosy type of football player, we like to say. But I think when you look at the depth chart, Akello Witherspoon, Levi Wallace, I think that's virtue just because Wallace has been unavailable because of his illness, and they're like, well, we got to start Akello here. I think if everybody's healthy, I think it is Witherspoon instead of Cam Sutton, and Cam Sutton's now more of your flex nickel cornerback type that can come in as a third cornerback. Terrell Austin also said you need 4 cornerbacks on this roster, and I think between all 4 of those positions, I think that's where your 4 is right now.
Yeah, he said not everybody thinks it's 3, it's 4.
Yeah, exactly. So
you're not always going to have 4, so you better have 4. That way you'll have at least 3.
Always, at least available.
Yeah. Also, the new safety from Dallas and Atlanta showing up.
Yeah. No. I really like where we're at with the safety rotation. And I have to say, Trey Norwood's another guy that's just been popping up for me and has just shown us that he's learned from year 1 to year 2. They moved him from corner up to the safety position. He feels more comfortable there, put on a little bit of weight, and he's had a nose for the football, playing that kind of center fielder type of position and really making some plays. But I think when you're thinking about Minka back there and Terrell Edmonds, it's like, hey, well, where are the other guys figure into this rotation? And I have to say, I really like what Carl Joseph has done. I thought he's done a good job. Now, obviously, he hasn't been available the last couple of days. Wife just had a baby, so he had to get back home, obviously, to see the birth of his child. But he was a guy that, before all this, he was a guy that figured into this equation as well, showing us that he had a little bit in the tank. Of course, Miles Killebrew has been out with a little bit of an injury. So that safety position, I mean, obviously everything's solidified once 39 decides that he's going to play. And that is your center fielder. That is your mainstay guy. Then, of course, we worry about at the other position, at the other safety, Terrell Edmonds and such. Who's going to be able to fill the job? I know Terrell Edmonds, he struggled a little bit in camp with some of the coverage things, been a little bit late, but I think he's a guy that's played a lot of football that when we actually turn the lights on in Acrisure Stadium, I think he comes alive in those moments, and he has a good rapport with 39.
Nice job on getting the name of the stadium right.
Hey, this is all about. We're professionals here behind the desk.
It's still camp. You're mid-season 4. Yeah. No, Tamonte Kazee, is that how you say it, or is it
Casey? Tamonte Casey.
Did a little checking on him this week with some people, and I was told he's only listed at I think 180 pounds, but this guy 174, 5'11", 174. This guy hits.
He's not afraid to hit. He hits any and everything. It's like Bam Bam on the Flintstones. If the ball goes up in the air and there's a defender, he's probably going to hit that guy. He drilled Calvin Austin III on a drag in the end zone one time. He was coming on a deep crosser, and he tagged him hard. He's hit another couple of guys.
That was without pads.
That was without pads. Yeah. And then we got in pads.
That was one of the whoa. Mike Tomlin says he'd rather say whoa than sick him. He said whoa.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, and it carried over into the pads because he was taking on Benny Snell. He was taking on running backs, tight ends, defending against him. But like you said, he's a smaller guy, but a very aggressive, very nosy guy to the line of scrimmage. So he adds into that equation. I think he's a kid that's definitely shown some promise. It's going to see how he figures out into more of the core 4 special teams roles. Can he carve out some roles there and be on all 4 of those?
By the way, Austin is listed at 5'9", $162. Is it just coincidental, or do you think there's been a little testing of his ability to take a shot and bounce back up?
I would say a little bit of both. You want to see if he can. You want to make sure he's not a stick figure. You want to make sure he's got a little bit of pad in there.
And I think he's doing fine, by the way.
Oh, no. Calvin Austin III has bounced up from everything that's been thrown in front of him, every obstacle. This kid is a guy that I look at him like he's going to find his way onto the field. one way or another. I don't know if it's in the punt return or kick return game or whether it's going to be on coverage units, but he's going to figure out into being in a role because he's too fast and too gifted, and he catches everything from the wide receiver position. You know, having Deontay out, having Chase out has really given a lot of these young wide receivers an opportunity to work with first and second team in a lot of situations. He's answered the call. He's made some very spectacular plays in camp thus far. So he's a guy that's pushing for some game day playing time.
That's going to do it for our look at the first depth chart of the season. Of course, we have no practice behind us, so there will be no wrap-up show today. We'll be back with you on Monday after the Players' Day off tomorrow. Until then, for Max Starks, I'm Mike Prisuta. Thanks for finding us on Training Camp Live.